30,
Okay.
39 I should read, right?
So we started recording.
Yes. Aphorism 39.
Yeah. For homeopathy for humanity.
39.
Yes. Huh.
One of them is about ancient medicine, and one of them is about ancient medicine still being used, and another one is about Cullen. You remember we had Cullen, who Hahnemann was translating his Materia Medica from English into German.
Yes.
That's where
Yeah.
Hahnemann got the idea that perhaps cinchona doesn't cure malaria because of its bitterness, but because maybe the substance itself has a particular action. So that's why he started to take cinchona and got the whole idea for homeopathy. So Cullen was what was known as a solidist. He
what?
believed a solidist.
Okay.
He believed in limiting bloodletting, purging, and vomiting,
Okay.
which was a very novel thing in that time period. That was unusual, that he wanted to limit that. And he also believed that there were things that caused disease, like germs. And, the old-fashioned word for that is miasm or miasmata, right?
Yeah.
So Cullen believed in doing less bloodletting, purging, and vomiting. And he also believed that there are some things out there that cause sickness. And he also classified disease in a novel way, with like charts of this might cause this, and when the result during the autopsy is thus, it might have been because of X, Y, or Z type germ. So Cullen was a very
Okay.
interesting figure, and that really, in more ways than one, influenced Hahnemann. We think of Cullen and his Materia Medica, we think of the translation, but we don't think about how else he influenced modern medicine. So that's just a little bit of a side note.
Okay.
Okay, so aphorism 39. Now the adherents of the ordinary school of medicine saw all this for so many centuries. They saw that nature herself cannot cure any disease by the accession of another, be it ever so strong, if the new disease be dissimilar to that already present in the body. What shall we think of them, that they nevertheless went on treating chronic disease with allopathic remedies, namely with medicines and prescriptions, capable of producing God knows what morbid state? Almost invariably, however, one dissimilar to disease to be cured. And even though physicians did not hitherto observe nature attentively, the miserable results of their treatment should have taught them that they were pursuing an inappropriate, a false path. Did they not perceive when they employed, as was their custom, an aggressive allopathic treatment in a chronic disease, that thereby they only created an artificial disease dissimilar to the original one, which, as long as it was kept up, merely held in abeyance, merely suppressed, merely suspended the original disease, which latter, however, always returned and must return as soon as the diminished strength of the patient no longer admitted of a continuance of the allopathic attack on life. Thus itch, ecthamia, certainly disappears very soon from the skin under the employment of violent purgatives. Remember, purging people means making them vomit. Frequently repeated But when the patient can no longer stand the factitious, dissimilar disease of the bowels, we can take no more purgative. Then either the cutaneous eruption breaks out as before, or the internal spora displays itself in some bad symptom. And the patient, in addition to his undiminished original disease, has to endure misery of a painful, ruined digestion and impaired strength of food. Also, when the ordinary physicians keep up artificial ulcerations of the skin and issues on the exterior of the body, with the view that thereby eradicating a chronic disease, they can never cure them by such means, such as artificial cutaneous ulcers, are quite alien and allopathic to the internal affection. But insomuch as the irritation produced by several issues is at least somewhat a stronger dissimilar than the indwelling malady, the latter is thereby sometimes silenced and suspended for a week or two. But it is only suspended for that very short time, while the patient's powers are gradually worn out. Epilepsy, suppressed for many years by means of issues, invariably recurred and in an aggravated form when they are allowed to heal up, and others, Peschlin and others testify. But purgatives for itch and issues for epilepsy cannot be more heterogeneous. More dissimilar deranging agents cannot be more allopathic, more exhaustive modes of treatment than are the customary prescriptions composed of unknown ingredients used in ordinary practice for other nameless, innumerable forms of disease. These likewise do nothing but debilitate and only suppress or suspend the malady for a short time without being able to cure it. And when used for a long time, always add a new morbid state to the old disease. Okay, so now we're going to talk about it. Okay, so
Okay.
one of the things that they are talking about here is something called issues and setons and fontanelles. Now, these were big things that people used all the time. Ajiti talked about having one when he had his shoulder problem. It's when they would take a piece of skin and they would pierce it and then like leave a rope. So it'd be like a piercing with an open wound.
Mm-hmm.
That diverted the vital force's attention from the disease to the newly created disease.
Okay.
They still use this today when people have an anal fistula. They still
Okay.
put it in order to try to divert the fluids. It's the same exact thing that they've been doing since like what? Oh, over 2,000 years. They've been attempting to divert the humors. They've been attempting to divert the attention of the vital force. And that would be accomplished by making a hole and running something through it, often with like a drainage tube. And this is why we brought up Cullen, is because Cullen believed in limiting these kinds of debilitating, quote unquote, treatment. Everybody knew that if they went to the herb lady when they were sick with a normal illness, that the herb lady could give them such and such tea, they would probably feel better, and then they'd move on with life. But when it went to going to the physician for physicking, that meant taking things that made people vomit, gave people copious diarrhea, or they'd insert these things called setons or fontanelles in order to try to do all these things to remove the bad humors or to divert the attention. But these are not similars. These are no way similar to what needs to be done with the vital force. So Aphorism 39 is all about how the chronic disease can never be cured with a dissimilar, be it, some kind of complex herbal medication with some metals thrown in, or whatever it happens to be. It's not going to be something that's similar. There's only been accidental cures that have helped in chronic conditions. So the setons and the purgings and the bloodlettings, we know this just logically that this would be something that would be very debilitating. You can't take somebody's blood supply and reduce it by half and expect them to get well. It's just not the way it works. But it was the theory of the time. So he says that these exhausting, they make the vital force very, very weak to use all these different things, these aggressive, heroic treatments. Remember, we had a Zoom meeting about heroic medicine. So the heroic treatment meant to try to keep people alive didn't diminish the disease, other than it would temporarily suspend it, because the new thing that would be given would be something that the vital force needs to pay attention to as more of an acute situation. And so once the treatment is stopped, the person just returns to the situation they had, or will have a new different disease because of the mistreatment. So this is all about how doing these things, the dissimilar diseases, never cure, but they sometimes suspend the chronic illness. And that's pretty much it. I had a nice picture of a seton, but that's in the PDF.
Oh, too bad.
I know. To find a picture of a seton, there's tons and tons and tons of them in allopathic medicine. They talk a lot about setons for anal fistula. So people can just Google that. Or
Okay.
there's another thing is that at pirate medicine, I think .com, they talk a lot about historic medicine. And there's another place, Lewis and Clark, they were explorers in Upper America. They also have a very good, interesting website with a lot of the old-fashioned, 19th century treatments that were available to people during those days. Things like the mixtures, like there's pictures of like the syringe for the urethra for when people get venereal disease. What they do is they'd make like a strong concoction of mercury and put it in a syringe and shoot it in the urethra, and thereby try to cure the venereal disease. But we know that the venereal disease has occupied the whole body before any.
Yeah.
And so the history of medicine and the history of modern medicine is very, very interesting. But it stands true today that there's a lot of drugs that are used for suppression of symptoms. We know that
Yeah.
very common. And once the drugs are discontinued, the symptoms come back. And that's because they're not dissimilar. Because they're dissimilars. But nowadays, we also have those chemical medicines, the ones that are supposed to replace missing chemicals. Like if somebody has a thyroid problem, we're going to give them thyroid extract or synthetic thyroid extract. But then again, once it gets discontinued, the disease comes right back. It doesn't get cured. So while some of these treatments can suspend, how do we define the word suspend?
Like to restrict, to try to keep it aside, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Like we could suspend something. Let's see. What do we have here that we can suspend something? Ah, I got it, got it. I got it. Here we have a disc from a national park, and it is suspended from this string. So it's suspended, it's held off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're talking about, is that some allopathic treatments can hold off the disease, but it doesn't cure it. It still exists. And that's basically it for this aphorism. Does anybody have any questions?
Will you give little more examples how they used to give treatment for different diseases?
Yeah, well, they lots of times they would, do bloodletting, right? Okay, bloodletting is when they take a sharp knife and go to the vein here, they put a tourniquet, and they'd fill bowls and bowls of blood because they thought that the illness was that there was too much blood. And so that was something that was very common. It's also very common to try to get rid of the illness by giving people diarrhea or by making them vomit. But like Hahnemann says, all that ever did is irritate the digestive system. Because when the person needs to vomit, they're going to naturally do it. If you've eaten something wrong, you're just naturally going to vomit. You don't need somebody to help you vomit. So
Yeah.
that was another thing is that they, and okay, so there's vomiting, there's purging, there's giving people diarrhea. And this isn't something they do once. They'd say, we need to do it on a regular basis. We need to do it every day. We need to do starvation. We need to do all these different things. These were lots of different things that they tried to do, but these weren't similars. They were dissimilars, and they were very weakening. They made people weaker. So for somebody to to have an open wound, let's say on the back of their neck or in their shoulder, because they were trying to divert attention to the vital force, that isn't going to cure anything. It's just going to make them weaker. It's going to get infected and it's going to hurt.
I just wanted to mention that during those treatments, at the same time, historically, in the Middle Ages in Europe, the botanics, the plant ladies you mentioned, they persecuted them at the same time, and they had even more knowledge of anatomy and physiology and herbology than those people, and they actually persecuted these women. That's the irony for me.
Yes, that is a very, very important thing to mention, is that these herb ladies and the midwives, the people who knew how to help women give birth safely, were persecuted by doctors.
And killed, yeah.
Oh yeah, killed. Yeah, I mean, they'd
burnt on a stick, basically.
Right, burnt on a stake. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous, but we see the same kinds of things happening today in many places, where anybody who has any actual information that might help people is persecuted to a certain extent if people don't take it favorably. So yes, anybody who, like those herb ladies who did have some help and hope, for being able to relieve people's discomfort and to help them get well, because they didn't tend to use extreme condensed compounds. It was mostly like herbal teas and things like that, a lot of which are used in homeopathy today. Down.
Yeah, because a lot of folk medicine came to homeopathy as well, but in more concrete scientific doses in our cases.
Exactly. And if you look at something like the Boriki Materia Medica, it has tons of New World, North American folk remedy herbs. And the reason why Boriki put it in his Materia Medica is in the hope that in the future, people will come to give provings to these. So he put them in there without provings, but just based on the historical use by the Native
Okay.
Americans and the indigenous peoples. And very, very few people have actually taken up the provings. They just use it as is because they don't read that fine print in the introduction where William Bork is like, I'm just going to put these here because we might need to know what these are, because these are probably valuable, but they really aren't proving for them. So we're using them without proving data.
That's kind of tricky.
Yeah, it is kind of tricky. And it's more herbology than homeopathy. But as we know, there is herbology that does help people. But you can't really cure a deep-seated chronic disease without a dynamic medicine.
True.
Yeah, so Gunjan, placing these things in the body that created the diversion and the infection, just, making people vomit every day, making them have diarrhea all the time, it weakened them very, very badly. And since
Yeah.
these were not similars, it didn't cure.
Yeah. But how can we compare it to today's medicine? Because from my own experience, I know that, for example, in psychiatry, they don't necessarily give medicines every day, but they give a therapy and then they slowly put it up, make it smaller and smaller until the therapy is finished, if you know what I mean.
Tapering doses.
Sorry?
Tapering of the doses of the medicine.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So they choose a therapy, and then once they say they found the right therapy, they just use it less and less with each day until the patient stabilizes. So in my opinion, that would be an example of allopathy that isn't that dangerous.
Yeah, they're using like a biochemical kind of thing where they're trying to, change the chemistry of the body. And in a lot of countries, they never expect people to stop taking medication. They just want them there as a permanent customer. So once somebody, let's say, gets on Prozac, they're not going to say, well, let's give therapy, let's change the situation, let's try to work through the issues. They're just like, okay, this is medicine, you take this medicine forever. So even the fact that there are doctors in some parts of the world who are willing to say, yeah, let's do this for a short while until things stabilize and work at the problems at the same time is novel. I mean, that's a very good thing. That's a very
like
good thing.
nowadays, if someone is diagnosed with thyroid, they start with numericazole. For the diabetic condition, they give some medicine.
That's
They
true.
just
That's true.
suspend. So it just suspend it. Once you remove the medicine, the disease again flare up.
I know. I just wanted to name an example where they don't do it. I think because I think it's commendable, I don't think we should criticize them in absolutely everything they do. I mean, they do mostly badly, but sometimes they do something okay. So
and they're trying their best. I mean, most people who practice modern medicine are doing it because they want to help people.
Yeah, exactly.
We can give another example with antibiotics. If somebody comes down with an acute infection, they're going to give a course of antibiotics. But they're not going to stay on the antibiotics forever.
Yeah.
It's going to cure that infection. Now, that's going to have side effects, with what happens.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
And things like that. And that becomes complicated. But yes, there are instances where, the therapy isn't intended to last forever.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that.
Yes, very good mention. Good observation.
Even in Ayurveda, they do the panchakarma. They provoke the vomiting to clean the body. You mean to say like this?
Like that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what Hanuman's talking about.
Yes. Okay.
So the main point here is dissimilars do not cure chronic disease.
Okay.
Definitely.
Anything else?
Nothing I would add personally. I just wish I knew more about, because now we read what Hanuman wrote about treatments during those days. But I wish we knew more about what they're doing today so what kind of medicine that developed, because I don't know much. But
Yeah,
I
well,
guess
modern
yeah.
medicine has kind of reached beyond dissimilars
No,
to
now, yes, modern medicine. But nowadays, see, in India, the people are using, if they have hair fall, the people are introducing some substance, they give the hair gummies. It's like that, things are coming of late very much. The herbal teas and the different types of uh, herbs people are taking, seeds people are taking, it's like that.
Yeah, people are, I guess, unaware, because, for example, if a person has a hair fall problem and they didn't take the supplement, people are not informed about the fact that there are other issues in their body they also need to address with
Yes,
a minimum, but they just care about the hair, and other
yes.
things maybe they will ignore
They are
because they're
not,
not of
they
an
are not,
aesthetic nature.
they are not going to the roots. They are just want to
Exactly.
beautify their body, and they are not
Exactly.
seeing internally what is damaging. They are
Yeah.
not aware.
And
while
maybe
we all
at
care about our hair, we have to look at the holistic picture of what's
exactly.
going wrong.
Exactly. And a lot of those people, I believe, maybe have a lot of mental issues, since we know that anxiety and other problems are on the rise, but they don't know that these two are connected. So maybe the hair fall and the anxiety with homeopathy we could cure at the same time, but people don't do it. People, for example, maybe they will take hair gummies and they will also microdose on, I don't know, psychedelics, which is very popular at the
Yeah,
moment.
that is very
People
popular at the moment.
Yeah, so people are taking many medicines for many things without knowing that in homeopathy we just have one medicine for the whole person, which is unfortunate that they do not know.
Yeah. So the more we let people know, the more people can come and get a more complete healing experience. Another
Yeah.
example of hair fall is, postpartum
Yeah.
after childbirth. And they just say, it's normal, your hair will grow back, but we know that there's something hormonally going on, and we know it doesn't happen to every woman. So we might need to
Yeah.
give Natmir, we might need to give sulfur, we might need to give sepia in order to regain that balance for the woman that's having the problem. So yeah, I mean, homeopathy is more holistic. We're looking at a bigger picture,
Yeah.
and the more people who know about it, the better.
Yep. But for some reason, I'm not sure, because I still haven't tried marketing yet, but I've heard a lot of people that it's hard to get people to take the alternative route, because I guess a lot of people look at what's popular. They're afraid to take the path less taken, I guess.
Yeah, but when people have positive experiences with their homeopath, they tend to tell their friends, and
That's
that
true.
helps.
That's true. Let me just close the door because my roommate didn't do it. Yeah, yeah. That's why we need to spread the word.
Yeah,
I'm
because-
just so worried. Sorry, I know it's not the topic, but I'm so worried. I want to spread the word, but I'm worried that because I had a lot of bad experience with homeopaths where when they didn't help me. So I'm worried that I will market it, but then when once the patient comes, I won't be able to help him well. So that is another issue because of homeopathy. The true homeopathy has become very diluted nowadays in the modern homeopathy. There are very different kinds that went away from Hahnemann, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
So
So
that's
even
kind of tricky.
even something like keynote prescriptions can be better than, let's say, a personality prescription. So having a book on keynotes, like Alan's keynotes, that can be very helpful. So at
Okay,
least,
okay,
to get a idea in the right direction.
okay. I'm happy I found the organization so I know I can get help if I
Yeah.
need it. So that's really great. I'm really grateful for that. So I'm very excited to start practicing soon.
Yep, we're looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah. So come May, come June, and we will be starting. So I will let you guys know.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So more people can know. So I plan to also start doing lectures in different parts of town so people can learn a bit about history of medicine and homeopathy and the outlook on health because I think a lot of people don't even think about their health
Yeah, they
and what
don't.
it means. Yeah. And what they
Yeah,
put in
that's
their
nice.
bodies and what does it mean for their life. I don't think people think about it.
Right. A
So
long time ago, I used to ask people, do you want to have like a little home group where, you want to have me come in and speak? You can give some tea and cookies and we could
yeah.
talk about holistic healthcare. And that helped a lot in
Okay,
areas.
great.
Just simple things like that, like a grassroots kind of thing can be very helpful.
Yeah. That's how I plan to do it as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn off the recording here. Okay,
Sure.
guys, thank you and join us next time.
We
Okay,
will.
which day, ma'am?
Bye, everyone.
Bye.